My name is Alex Mercer, and I thought delivering food at night was just another job. I was wrong. When I took my first order to a house that didn't exist on any map, I didn't just deliver food, I delivered myself into something far worse. I worked late nights because the city feels different when most people are asleep. Streets that usually choke with traffic are empty, and the glowing signs of fast food chains stand out like lonely beacons. I tell myself I like the peace, but in truth I'm always uneasy. There's something unnatural about moving around while everyone else hides behind locked doors. It feels like trespassing in a world that doesn't belong to me. Still, food delivery pays better at night, and I need the money. That night, everything started normally. Orders came in. I drove to the familiar places, and I reminded myself to stay awake with cheap coffee and loud music. Then an order appeared on my app. The restaurant was one I knew, a small place downtown, but the address caught my eye. It was somewhere on the edge of the map, right past a highway I never crossed for deliveries. At first, I almost declined it, but something in me hesitated. The payout was higher than usual, like the system was pushing me to take it. Against my better judgment, I tapped accept. The food smelled normal when I picked it up, just a greasy burger and fries sealed in a brown paper bag. Nothing strange, but the GPS route looked odd. It didn't take me through the usual main streets. Instead, it guided me into quiet neighborhoods, winding through back roads I barely recognized. The houses looked older here, their paint chipped, windows dark, and yards overrun with weeds. Every turn made me feel further from the city, though the distance on the app wasn't that far. Eventually, the roads narrowed and streetlights became scarce. My headlights carved tunnels through the blackness, showing only what was right in front of me. The further I drove, the quieter it became. No cars, no dogs barking, not even the rustle of trees. The silence pressed in on me, thick and heavy. The app's voice navigation gave calm instructions, but even that felt wrong, as if the voice was too eager for me to arrive. Finally, I turned onto a cracked road that looked forgotten. Grass pushed up through the asphalt, and the edges crumbled into dirt. At the very end sat a house. My chest tightened as I slowed the car. It didn't look lived in. The paint peeled in long strips. The shutters hung crooked, and the windows were so dark they seemed like empty eye sockets. My app chimed, confirming the destination. I felt a chill. Who could possibly order food here? I sat in the car for a while, staring at the house. The longer I looked, the more wrong it seemed. The shape of the roofline didn't match the rest of the houses I'd passed. The porch sagged, the railing splintered, and weeds swallowed the path to the front steps. I told myself maybe it was just an old rental, someone trying to save money. People lived in worse places, didn't they? I grabbed the bag, the warm grease soaking faintly through the paper. My hand trembled, though I didn't know why. I forced myself to walk up the path. The weeds brushed against my legs, sharp and dry, as if they were grabbing at me. The porch groaned under my weight, loud enough to make me flinch. The air smelled sour, like damp wood mixed with something metallic. I knocked once. The sound echoed in a strange way, too loud for such a small house. It was as if the walls inside were hollow, amplifying every noise. No answer came. I knocked again, weaker this time. Still nothing. Relieved, I placed the bag by the door, pulled out my phone, and snapped a picture for proof. I turned quickly, heading back toward the car. That was when my phone vibrated in my hand. I glanced down, expecting the usual confirmation that the delivery was complete. Instead, the screen flashed a new notification. It wasn't the app's normal message. The words were different. Colder, it read. Do not leave. Wait outside. I froze. My eyes darted from the glowing screen back to the house. For a moment, I thought I saw movement through one of the upper windows, a slow shift, as if something pulled away from the glass. The air grew colder, sharper, and every hair on my body stood on end. Then, from deep inside the house, I heard it, a groan, low and heavy, like old wood bending under a massive weight. It rolled through the walls, followed by a scraping sound. Something was moving in there, something big. I stood there, gripping my phone, heart hammering, caught between the car waiting behind me and the black mouth of that house breathing in front of me, and the notification glared back at me, insistent, like an order I couldn't refuse. Do not leave. Wait outside. The bag I'd left on the porch rustled faintly, as if something inside had shifted on its own. The wind stirred around me, colder than it should have been for that time of night. It pressed against my skin like icy fingers, carrying with it the faint smell of something sour. My car sat behind me, its headlights glowing weakly against the road, offering a way out. But the phone in my hand buzzed again, pulling my attention back toward the house. I didn't want to look, but I did. The screen glared with another notification. This time the words were simple but suffocating. Stay until you are called. My heart thudded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I told myself I could just ignore it, walk back and drive away. But my legs felt heavy, as though the night itself was weighing them down. The thought of turning my back on the house filled me with even more dread. It was like if I dared to look away for too long, something would seize the chance to come closer. The food bag caught my eye. I had left it neatly on the porch, folded tight at the top, but now its shape was different. The sides sagged, stained darker by spreading wet patches. Something thick dripped from the bottom onto the wooden boards. My stomach twisted when I saw the droplets glisten under the weak light from my phone. They weren't golden like grease. They were darker, heavier, red. I took a slow step forward, unable to stop myself. The smell hit me before I got close, metallic, sharp, unmistakable. It wasn't ketchup, wasn't sauce, it was blood. The warm, greasy smell of fries was gone, replaced by something raw and coppery. The bag twitched, just a faint ripple, as though whatever was inside had shifted again. My breath caught in my throat. Every nerve screamed at me to run, but as soon as I thought it, my phone lit up one more time. "Bring it inside." The words glowed brighter than the rest of the screen, almost pulsing, as if they were alive. The house groaned, not from the wind, not from the shifting of old wood, but from movement. Something scraped against the floor inside, slow and deliberate, dragging across the surface like claws or nails. The sound drew closer to the door, closer to me. I backed up until I felt the top step of the porch edge beneath my heel. My chest rose and fell too fast, each breath shallow, ragged. The door loomed in front of me, a rotting slab of wood with chipped paint. Yet it felt like the mouth of something waiting to swallow me whole. The shadows around it seemed thicker, clinging to the frame. The bag twitched again, more violently this time, as if whatever was inside was pressing against its thin paper walls. The top split slightly, just enough for me to see a hint of something pale through the gap. Skin, not food. Skin, damp and stretched, glistening with that same red fluid dripping onto the boards. I staggered back, clutching my phone so hard it felt like it might shatter in my hand. My finger hovered over the power button, ready to shut the whole thing off, to disconnect from this nightmare. But when I pressed it, the screen didn't go dark. The message remained, glowing defiantly. "Bring it inside." I tried again. The button didn't respond. I even dropped the phone, hoping it would break. It didn't. The screen lit up from the ground, glowing brighter in the dirt, the words still pulsing. "Bring it inside." My car engine suddenly sputtered. The headlights flickered, then died, plunging the road into complete darkness. My only light was the phone, its glow casting faint shadows that seemed to writhe and twist along the porch. The sound inside the house grew louder, scraping, dragging, breathing. Something was waiting on the other side of that door. I bent down slowly, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the bag as I picked it up. It felt heavier than it should have, the bottom sagging dangerously. Warmth seeped through the thin paper, sticky against my skin. The smell was so strong now it made my eyes water. Behind me, the road no longer looked familiar. The outlines of houses I thought I had passed seemed gone, swallowed by the night. It was as if the world had shrunk until only I, the bag, and that house remained. The silence pressed in harder, broken only by the wet drip of the bag and the rasp of something moving inside. The door in front of me rattled gently, as if something pressed against it from within. My knees weakened, my breath caught. The scraping sound stopped suddenly, replaced by silence so thick I thought I'd gone deaf. Then came a new sound, soft but deliberate, something tapping against the wood. Slow, steady, like fingernails. I couldn't move. My phone buzzed once more at my feet, and though I didn't want to, I looked. The screen now showed a single word. Not a request, not a command and order. Now the bag in my hands shifted again, harder this time, and I felt the shape inside pressing outward, as if it wanted to crawl free. The word on the screen burned into my eyes, refusing to fade. My throat tightened, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. The bag in my hands trembled, the warm, sticky liquid running down my wrist in slow trails. I wanted to throw it, to fling it into the weeds and run until the night swallowed me, but some force I couldn't explain pinned me to the spot. My arms locked, my legs rooted to the porch. The only thing moving was the bag, pulsing faintly like it had a heartbeat of its own. With a shallow breath, I reached for the door. The wood was colder than ice beneath my fingers, damp as though it had been soaking in the dark. My hand shook as I pushed, and the door creaked open. The sound stretched out too long, echoing unnaturally as though the house itself were groaning awake. The air that poured out hit me like a wave. It smelled of mold, dampness, and something sour, like rotting flesh. My flashlight beam cut into the dark, but the light looked weaker inside, swallowed by the shadows. The hallway stretched farther than it should have, as if the house were bigger on the inside than the outside. Walls leaned in with peeling wallpaper, stained by moisture and streaked with something brown. Shapes were carved into the surface, symbols, scratches, long smears made by desperate hands. I stepped in, each board under my feet groaning in protest. The sound echoed strangely, bouncing back from corners I couldn't see. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me with a force that made the floor vibrate. My flashlight flickered, the shadows twitching with it, as though alive. I set the bag down, hoping the nightmare would end if I just completed the delivery. The paper crinkled under its own weight, sagging as though it held something wet and shifting. The liquid pooled on the warped floorboards, dripping into the cracks. The stench grew stronger, then silence. I waited for the door to open again, for something, anything, to happen. My phone buzzed in my pocket, the vibration rattling against my leg like a warning. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. The app glowed with another message. Don't leave it, stay. I wanted to scream, but my throat was too tight. My light trembled across the floor, catching glimpses of things I didn't want to see: shredded cloth, broken glass, a smear of something dark dragged into the shadows. The bag twitched. The paper tore open, a wet ripping sound that echoed too loudly in the narrow hallway. My stomach clenched as a pale shape pushed through the opening. At first I thought it was bone, thin, sharp, and yellowed, but then the shape curled, fingers stretching out like claws. A hand, it clawed its way upward, trembling and stiff, the skin gray and withered, stretched tight over bones that jutted out like spikes. Veins ran black beneath its surface, twitching with each movement. The hand gripped the edge of the bag, pulling something else with it. A head emerged next, bent at an unnatural angle. It was hairless, the skin pulled taut and damp, mouth slack and gaping. Where eyes should have been, there was nothing but black stitches. Thick thread pulled crudely across the lids, keeping them sealed. The thing unfolded itself, crawling from the torn bag as though it had been shoved inside and forced to wait. The paper ripped apart completely, collapsing beneath its weight. It rose higher, far taller than I expected, its limbs too long, its back arched grotesquely to fit beneath the ceiling. The stitched eyes twitched violently, straining against the thread. My flashlight flickered again, casting the creature in broken frames. Each time the light returned, it had shifted closer without moving, like a nightmare skipping forward. My chest heaved, each breath painful and sharp. I pressed myself against the wall, but the walls themselves seemed to lean closer, squeezing me toward it. The creature tilted its head, listening. Its mouth opened wider than it should have, stretching into a silent scream that showed no teeth, only dark, wet emptiness. The smell pouring out of it was suffocating. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but my eyes dropped to the screen on their own. A new message glared back at me, colder than anything before. You delivered yourself. The words froze me in place, sinking deep into my mind until I couldn't think of anything else. My hand loosened, the phone slipping from my grasp. It clattered onto the floor, the light from the screen glowing upward, making the creature's stitched face glow from below like a grotesque mask. The thing leaned closer, its head only inches from mine. I could see the black thread tremble, as though whatever was behind those lids was straining to burst free. Its breath was cold against my skin, colder than the night, colder than death itself. And then, in the silence of that rotting hallway, I realized the sound I had thought was my own heartbeat wasn't mine at all. It was coming from the creature, loud, uneven, pounding inside its broken chest. A heartbeat that didn't belong to me, but to whatever had been waiting inside that bag all along. The creature unfolded in front of me, grotesque and impossibly long, each joint bending in ways no human body should. Its skin was gray and slick, stretched tight over sharp bones that protruded like broken twigs. The black thread stitched across its eyes quivered, and I could swear it was straining against some invisible force, trying to open its lids. My chest tightened, my lungs burned, and I couldn't move. My mind screamed for me to run, but my body refused to obey. It leaned forward, the smell of decay and something metallic flooding my senses. Every inch of my skin felt like it was crawling with insects. Its head tilted unnaturally, scanning the hallway with the eyes it did not have. It made a wet, scraping sound with each movement, like nails dragging across a chalkboard. I could see every tendon in its arms tense as it adjusted its grip on the floor. I stumbled backward, crashing into the wall. The creature froze for a moment, tilting its head to follow me. My back hit a small table, knocking over a broken lamp. The glass shattered, scattering shards across the warped wooden floor. The creature ignored the sound, didn't need to be scared, it was patient. My flashlight flickered wildly, casting fractured shadows across the walls. In the gaps of light, I saw shapes moving, hands pressed against walls. Strange silhouettes slithering from corners, all drawn to the presence of this thing. The scratching sound grew louder, accompanied by wet, slithering noises that I couldn't place. The house itself seemed alive, leaning in on me, its floorboards groaning in slow, deliberate protest. I pressed myself against the corner, my hands shaking as I gripped the edge of the counter. The bag I had carried earlier sat nearby, torn and empty, but it no longer mattered. Whatever had emerged from it had outgrown the confines of paper and plastic. It moved closer, dragging its long limbs with a wet, dragging sound. Each step seemed to pull the floorboards upward, bending the room just slightly to accommodate its impossible length. The thing stopped just a few feet away. I could see the thread across its eyes trembling violently. Its head swiveled toward me, sniffing the air, tilting as though measuring me like prey. Then it lurched suddenly, an unnatural movement so quick it made my stomach drop. I stumbled backward again, barely catching myself on the table. A sound came from the walls, low, guttural, almost like whispers but not quite human. The voice seemed to come from every direction at once, echoing in corners I couldn't see. My stomach knotted as it grew louder, filling the room, pressing against my ears. It was saying something, though I couldn't understand the words, my own name. Maybe something far older, far darker than language could describe. The creature advanced again, each step deliberate, each movement jerky and unnatural, but somehow terrifyingly smooth in its intent. My flashlight beam danced across its form, revealing the impossibility of its joints. The thin gray skin stretched taut over unnatural angles. I could see the wetness along its arms and legs, dark streaks glistening in the faint light. I tried to push past it, but the hallways seemed to extend further than before, twisting and warping. The walls leaned in, the ceiling sagged, and I felt trapped in a labyrinth that was changing around me. Each time I thought I had a way out, the creature had moved closer without a sound. It was patient, meticulous, aware of every twitch, every heartbeat I tried to hide. My phone buzzed again. I couldn't move my hand to pick it up, but the light from the screen reflected in the creature's stitched eyes, giving the illusion that it was staring directly at me. The message was different this time. One word, pulsing with malevolent intent: finish. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I could only watch as it leaned in closer, its stitched lids twitching violently. The wet dragging sound became a low hiss, like it was tasting the air, reading my fear. Its head snapped toward the bag I had set aside, and I realized with growing horror that it hadn't left anything behind. Whatever had been in that bag wasn't finished yet. The room seemed to shrink, the shadows growing longer, darker, reaching for me. I could feel them pulling at my clothes, my skin, as if the house itself was participating in whatever ritual this thing had brought with it. I tried to step back, but the floor had shifted, and my foot sank into a soft, sticky substance. I looked down and felt bile rise in my throat. It was warm, thick, and unmistakably human. The creature tilted its head again, listening to the sound of my heart, the rhythm of my fear. Its stitched eyes twitched, as though it could see through me without needing sight. My own reflection flickered across the walls for a moment, twisted pale, stitched hidand. Then it was gone. And then, slowly, impossibly, it began to move toward me again, dragging the floorboards and shadows with it. I realized with a sinking dread that this was only the beginning. The last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed me was the glint of those black threads, straining, ready to open, ready to consume. I don't remember how I got outside. One second I was pressed against the warped walls of that house, and the next, I was stumbling across cracked pavement under the weak glow of the streetlights. My chest heaved, my hands trembled, and every instinct screamed at me to run. But the streets were wrong. The familiar outlines of the neighborhood had vanished. Only darkness stretched in every direction, broken by the distant, jagged silhouette of the house behind me. It seemed impossibly far away and impossibly close at the same time, a place that didn't obey the rules of distance. My car was gone. The tires, the headlights, the engine, everything vanished. I searched the road, my eyes straining against the shadows. Nothing, just the quiet hum of the night, broken by the occasional rustle of wind in the weeds. My phone was still in my pocket, screen glowing faintly, pulsating with light. I pulled it out, hoping for something familiar, a message telling me it was over, that I had escaped. But the app had changed. A new order had appeared. The same address, the same house, but the delivery details were different this time. There was no restaurant listed, no food items, only a single line of text: bring it. I tapped on the order instinctively, though a pit of dread opened in my stomach. The next screen asked for a name. I froze. My heart thundered. Slowly, impossibly, my own name appeared on the screen. It typed itself in, letters appearing one by one as if guided by something unseen. I dropped the phone. It didn't break. The light from the screen reflected across the ground, illuminating a path that shouldn't have existed. The air was colder here, thicker, and I could hear it, a dragging sound, faint at first, then closer. Footsteps. Behind me, the house door creaked open. Slow, deliberate. I didn't want to look, but I did. The porch was empty. Shadows stretched unnaturally thin and tall, crawling along the edges of the house. I could feel them moving without sound, twisting toward me, reaching. My breath caught in my throat as the wind carried a low whisper. My name, drawn out, almost like it was being sung from deep inside the house itself. I ran. The ground beneath me was soft, almost squishy, and I stumbled, scraping my palms across the rough pavement. I glanced back, and for a fleeting second, I thought I saw the creature. Its shape was impossible, long limbs bending in ways that shouldn't exist, gray skin glistening in the faint glow of my phone. Its stitched eyes twitched as it tilted its head, watching me, patient, deliberate. The streetlights flickered and died, plunging me into complete darkness. My phone was the only source of light, but its glow was weak against the suffocating blackness around me. Every shadow seemed alive, reaching out, crawling over the ground. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, and I realized there was nowhere to run. The world itself had changed. I stopped, too exhausted to move. My chest heaved as I gasped for air. The ground was uneven, and beneath my feet, I could feel something soft, pliable, like the remnants of something living pressed into the earth. My stomach churned. I looked down. Footprints not mine, large, misshapen, stretching away into the darkness, leading directly back to the house. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but my eyes were drawn to it. The message on the screen made my blood run cold. It is time. The shadows around me shifted. The night pressed in, heavier now, like the air itself was conspiring against me. I could hear it moving, crawling closer, though I could see nothing. The whispers grew louder, incoherent but urgent, almost calling my name in dozens of voices at once. My mind reeled. The creature wasn't just behind me. It was everywhere, inside the air, the ground, the walls, the night itself. I fell to my knees, hands shaking, and tried to rationalize. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was hunger. Maybe it was a trick of the app. But deep down I knew the truth. I was already part of it. The bag, the house, the messages, they weren't random. They had been waiting for me, guiding me to this moment. And now the next order had been placed. The wind picked up, carrying a sound that made my skin crawl a wet, dragging noise, accompanied by low, guttural breathing. I could feel it moving closer, circling me, pulling at the edges of reality. My heart raced, pounding so loudly it seemed to echo across the empty street. I looked back at the house one last time. The door was wide open, darkness spilling out like a living thing, reaching for me. I realized then that I would never leave, not truly. The house didn't exist on any map. The streets didn't exist in any city, and the app didn't exist for anyone but me. The last thing I saw before I stumbled forward into the void was my own reflection in the phone screen, pale, terrified, stitch-tied, staring back at me. And I understood. The delivery wasn't about food. The delivery was about me. The next order confirmed itself. My name typed in automatically. The screen pulsed brighter, and the shadows pressed in, waiting. And then I ran, knowing that I would never stop, knowing that the house, the creature, and the night itself were coming for me. The streets of the city no longer existed. Only the delivery remained.